Greetings! Here's a Radio Shack TRS-80 Model 2 from 1980. I've been looking for one of these for a while. They don't turn up as often as the other early Radio Shack machines. They are quite a bit heavier, so when they turn up, one common thing is that usually people won't ship them. Come and pick them up in Nova Scotia. Well, that isn't going to work for me. Second of all, the keyboard is always missing. Well, not always, obviously, as you can see, but because it's not attached to the machine permanently, and it tends to get lost once it goes to auctions or recyclers or whatever. However, I found one. Oh yeah, the last part is that they're usually somewhat expensive. But I found one that was reasonable, had the keyboard, and the seller was willing to ship. So here it is. It is not in working condition. Even though the machine was well packed, I received a 72-pound box. After opening it, pulling out the computer itself and unwrapping it from some bubble wrap, bits and pieces of plastic started falling out. They were, it wasn't too serious, but they were basically slivers, which indicated that the machine must have passed close to a black hole on its way to my lab. It was packed or padded with cardboard, and it had no playroom inside the box. So when it hit that black hole, it couldn't move, it couldn't do anything, and it just started literally breaking apart at the seams, because those pieces that I saw were from the joints of where the case pieces made it together, and I guess it just broke them because of the force. But that's not all. I also noticed that the CRT was not sitting straight. It looked rotated and I was unable to center it in the front part of the case. So I took the whole thing apart and I put it back together partially, and I'll explain in a minute, but the CRT had moved to the right about an inch and was also slightly rotated clockwise. So this is the frame that holds the CRT. The vertical supports were bent to the right. This whole part was basically sitting about this far away from where it was supposed to be, and that's what was causing it to look totally misaligned, obviously, in the case. And disassembling it, I just bent everything back into place, knowing full well, though, that this thing got subjected to abnormally high G-forces, and I was going to have my work cut out for me. Now what you see right in front is the card cage that holds the 4 boards. And you can see it's got a retaining bar here that holds the cards into place. It holds them in place pretty sturdily. However, originally these had all disengaged from the slots that were holding them in place, were folded to the right, and basically sandwiched together over here. Again, an indication of the kind of forces that hit this machine. The computer doesn't work. It was as described. Turns on, the drive starts to spin, the red power light comes on, but nothing shows up on the screen. So we got some investigating to do and start fixing it. Now, I started with the obviously started with the display, because if it can't talk back to you, I'm sure there's some error messages in there, if the CPU runs, of course. That'll help me along. But I gotta tell you right now, I worked on the monitor for several hours. I filmed it, and I ended up with about 2 hours of footage, just going up blind alleys and not knowing what to do. It's my first rodeo with a Model 2, so things weren't going too well, and it looked like I had a massive amount of film for one of the faults on this, which would have been a nightmare to edit. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to talk you through what I did, do the express version, make it much easier to edit, and for the viewership, much easier to view, I hope. So I turned it on originally, the fan ran, the drive ran. Well, it's an 8-inch drive, and it pretty much spins the disk. It's got motors running all the time. It's pretty loud. You can't shut it off. That's just the nature of 8-inch drives. About 10 minutes after I first turned it on, the expected happened. This reefer cap blew up spectacularly. I mean, it actually spewed bits and pieces of the metal connector all over the place. I think it briefly caught on fire, blackened everything over here. It wasn't unexpected, but it happened. So the first thing I did was remove the power supply, replace the reefer, replaced another reefer back here, and put things back together again. Here's a reefer that blew out on this end, charred everything in its vicinity. Now technically, if this thing blows up, it's a safety cap, so it opens up, and it wouldn't prevent the power supply from working, but and judging from the amount of smoke and the smell it released, I had to leave the lab for a while, open the window, and wait for things to clear out. But I fixed it. I put a new one on the power supply, and so now we should be able to turn this thing on and see what it does. I mean, obviously the description was accurate. So fan starts running, power light comes on. These don't have built-in speakers, so they can't beep at you or do anything. And yeah, nothing's happening, nothing on the screen. So we do need to get started with the screen to see if the machine tells us anything at all about what ails it. So here's the original board, which I put on the bench, recapped, checked everything. I couldn't find anything bad, so my assumption was, which was not correct, but my assumption was that the flyback had gone bad. I was basically getting no high voltage, and I just did resistance measurements on all of the taps, and the primary taps on it showed below 1 ohm. Now, I don't know that much about the flybacks, but that seemed awfully low to me. I did hook it up to power on the bench just to measure current, and the board as it sits idle was drawing 1.6 amps. This resistor was heating up. I mean, the current had to go somewhere. Nonetheless, though, the oscillator was running, but I wasn't getting high voltage. So I did spend a fair amount of time on this, and finally I decided that I need some replacement. I need some way to tap the video signals off of the video card in the computer, which generates the two horizontal and vertical sync and the video itself. So I should have something in my inventory of vintage computer displays or what that I could hack or wire the Model 2 to at least see what's going on. Now you may wonder why all the wires are cut off, and that will be explained very soon in due time, when and the context later on will make it obvious, but it is what it is, and we're still at the point where I need to figure out how to get the Model 2 to display something. So I checked through computers I had and everything, and thought of ways of building something that merges all of the video signals together for a single composite output that I could check. I have many composite compatible monitors, but so what I did first though is, that seemed like a lot of work. So I figured, hey, let's look at a Model 1. So I took the Model 1 apart, and no, it's incompatible because the Model 1 actually generates composite. So next came the Model 3. And I hit pay dirt. The Model 3 has the exact same CRT driver board, identical. And not only that, the tube in the Model 3 is identical to the tube in the Model 2. So I could take out the CRT driver from the Model 3 and transplant it to the Model 2. And let's see what that would do. One thing I did before though is I put the Model 3 video driver on the bench and powered it up, and it only used 600 milliamps. Now I know that the Model 3 is working, has a good display, so at idle it was using less than half of what the current Model 2 was using. So yeah, there's something wrong with the existing with the Model 2 board, but let's see if we can get anything out of the machine now with the new CRT driver transplant. Well, I hooked up everything, and keep in mind that I've disconnected the floppy drive just to not have too many unknowns when doing this. But yeah, let's see if the video board works. Oh, it was a good moment when I saw that. It's obviously I'm having a bit of camera sync problems, but the screen is clean, and it's telling us to insert a diskette. So that is a very good thing. So now we shall go on and see if we can actually boot something from the floppy. But let's briefly get back to the emasculated driver board, the original. At this point, I was still jumping up and down because I actually got a display on screen, and now the computer was going to help me along and tell me what's wrong with it. However, I don't like to have too many open projects, and I was being real unfair to my Model 3, so I had to fix this board so I could put the original Model 3 board back into the Model 3. But I checked again. I just couldn't find what was wrong with this thing. I'd measured everything. Oscillator was running, the transistor was good, and well, it's just the natural order is I have to get the Model 3 back into fully working condition before continuing on the Model 2. So I got really lucky, because what happened was I found a guy who was parting out a Model 3. I saw disk drives, power supplies, keyboard, and then I saw one of these boards. Now, the reason everything on here is missing is basically it had been removed in the typical recycler fashion. Just cut all the wires till you can remove the board and then put it up for sale. Which is kind of dumb, because all of these connectors have quick connects on them, which are easy to pull off the deflection yoke. Then it's got a plug in the neck, and you cut all the wires on the neck too. And then, of course, we have the high voltage cup, and this was also cut. And this is not really something you want to repair. Well, you could, but you know, you're still running into arcing problems. And so I bought this board, and what I did was I took all the wires off of the original Model 2 and soldered them, because they were the proper length. They had the quick connects on them, they had the neckboard connector on them, and what you actually just witnessed right now, this is the replacement board I got. And as you can see, it was working. It was in full working condition, except of course the wires were cut off. I will get back to this board in due time. It needs to be fixed. One other thing I did was I actually swapped the flyback and did some measuring on the new flyback on the new board I got, and the flyback's good. There's something else really stupid going on this board that I'll find someday, but not right now. But fortunately, we have a fully working Model 3 again. I can that won't bother me anymore. It'll go back to its place, and we can continue with the Model 2. This is probably a good time to end part 1 here. I know it may seem short to some of you, but please keep in mind I've spent a lot of time doing this, and I could have given you a detailed video, but I think it would have been boring. It was just too much footage, and I don't think I left anything out, but let me know. One thing I want to point out to you is when taking apart a Model 2, these extensions are a crucial addition that you need in your toolbox, because screws are buried really deep on the machine, and it's very hard to get to some of them. So what you want is just the extensions. I think the extensions, this and this, I think they cost me like $10 or something. Also not shown, one other thing I got was a magnetic 1/4-inch socket, and that makes it a lot easier to get to all the screws that are hidden in between boards or brackets or whatever to take this machine apart. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon attacking the disk drive.